Hello guys, gals, and non-binary pals. My name is Shinkitsu, and today I wanted to try a bit of a different video. I know most of my current ones are just silly gameplay and maybe one thought-provoking moment in the entire thing, but I wanted to take some time to just talk about the current state of the game and how it compares to the past year or so. Before I get into it though, this is the first type of video I'm making like this, so please bear with me while I figure it out. Also, I stream Guilty Gear over at my Twitch, so if you want to talk about stuff or just watch some games and hang out, you can catch me there. With that though, let's get into it.
Mankind knew that they cannot change society, so instead of reflecting on themselves, they blamed the beast.
Guilty Gear as a franchise has been around for a long time. From arcade cabinets to basically every generation of console to whatever this is. It's been a pretty big mainstay in the anime fighting game community. That being said, it never quite broke out into commercial or mainstream success, and while an absolute blast to watch at tournaments, was never at the same level as games like Tekken, Street Fighter, or Mortal Kombat in terms of general appeal. That changed with Guilty Gear Strive. Strive is a pretty clear case of right place, right time in the fighting game community. With Mortal Kombat 11 having lukewarm reception compared to its predecessors, and Street Fighter V being in the state it was in for a long time, many folks were looking for a new game to try out. Games like Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and Dragon Ball FighterZ were promising, but the lack of rollback netcode made playing them less than desirable. Guilty Gear came with very solid rollback, and for the most part a very stable connection, making it a very promising game. And quite frankly, it just looked extremely cool. The diverse cast of both new and returning characters definitely caught a lot of eyes. From a gameplay perspective, Strive was also very welcoming. While it did away with some system mechanics in older games, and for the most part simplified the gameplay, it still allowed for extreme skill expression. The RC system got a nice overhaul and created very exciting matches that were always changing. For beginners, it was pretty easy to pick up just about any character and at least have some sort of an idea of what you're doing. The game was definitely a success, having more sales than any previous Guilty Gear game to date and quickly growing a community within the FGC. But it wasn't until EVO 2022 that the game really hit it into the mainstream. Now, mind you, when I say mainstream appeal, I mostly mean you can ask anyone in the online internet sphere of video games about it, and they'll probably be able to recognize it. With the reveal of Bridget and Umisha winning EVO, the game soared in popularity amongst the LGBTQ+ crowd and quickly spread across Twitter, getting a huge amount of eyes on the game from people that didn't pay much attention to fighting games before. Even if they wouldn't play it, and mind you, many people tried the game out after EVO, myself included, people knew about Guilty Gear. From this position, the developers had a very solid base of how they could move forward and had an opportunity to make the game even more exciting and enjoyable. So, what exactly happened? And why are we talking about the downfall of Strive? There's a few reasons, so let's talk about it.
Bridget, win.
I want to take a second to just talk about Bridget. Her being introduced into the game and being a trans character confirmed by Daisuke blew up. People who have no idea what Guilty Gear is know Bridget and adore her, and she's become a trans icon as a character. I truly think that no other character that Strive can introduce will blow up the same way Bridget did. Even a character like Johnny, who has been always adored both casually and competitively, will not create the same buzz as Bridget. This was extremely apparent with the characters that followed in her footsteps in the Season 2 pass. Sin had big shoes to fill, and sadly he didn't get close to filling them. Sin was probably one of the safest characters they could have picked, and it could have been inferred with him being in the story. But Sin didn't really bring anything new to the game. From a competitive sense, he was never seen as strong, and even to this day, and really no players put time into him. The only notable player is Kizzy K, and at the time of this video, he's been trending away from fighting games. From a casual level, he was okay. As a character, he didn't really feel super fleshed out and just didn't feel like he contributed a ton to the roster that a character like Johnny or Slayer may have. His kit isn't as exciting as it was in Exard, and his main gimmick of having a food bar got completely gutted in Strive. Now, while I could go on about Sin, the fact of the matter is that he didn't bring anything new or exciting to the game. At the moment that this video is being made, Delilah or Bedman is about to come out, and I feel like they'll have a similar reception. Bedman wasn't very high up on characters that players wanted to have come back, and I imagine folks will play them for a few days and then move on back to their character. Bridget was just such an explosive release that very, very few other characters could compare, and they would inevitably be a letdown. The only chance they had was being competitively viable or fun to play, and so far they just aren't. Speaking of competitively viable, at the time of this video's release, one of the main draws of Strive, that being its network, is leading to its downfall. With the release of PlayStation 4 crossplay, the networks took a pretty noticeable hit, where even PC players matching with each other would disconnect. Around the time this happened, a hacker was also terrorizing the game, ruining online netplay tournaments and making it so big content creators like Hotashi, Ramola, and Jinkitsu couldn't even run the game. There was tons of public outcry to ArcSys regarding the hacker and network issues, and it took them about a month to even make a public statement. At this time, the hackers haven't been appearing, but the lobby connections have gotten even worse. Xbox crossplay being released marked a noticeable increase in online connectivity issues, and just a few weeks after it is the worst we've ever seen. People I know have gone 30 minutes in-game and only gotten a single match, and in an online netplay tournament, a match had to be settled by a coin flip because players couldn't connect. This is completely unacceptable for a game that costs money and has caused tons of players to drop the game until it's fixed. Lastly, while Strive came into the scene at a time where fighting games were generally at a low, it was only a matter of time before other fighting games would come out to rival it. Street Fighter 6 is right on the horizon at the time of this recording, and many players have said that they're going to be migrating over to that game. Grand Blue Fantasy Rising is also coming out, another excellent anime fighter that was only held back by its lack of rollback, which is being fixed with Rising's release. Further on the horizon is Tekken 8 and Project L, but I think that those two games will have less of an impact on Strive as a whole. Street Fighter 6 and Grand Blue coming out are mostly notable because those are two games that very much emphasize traditional footsies and neutral. While Strive is a fantastic game, many players tout that a large part of the cast has tools that mostly nullify neutral and make it more akin to Mario Party than a traditional fighting game. Now, while this makes for a very fun viewing experience, it can be frustrating to know that you can load into a game against someone who has a mechanic that goes against the conventions of fighting games. But realistically, what does all of this mean? Is Guilty Gear really dead or dying? Is it fated to become another Discord fighter? Now, truthfully, I did a little tomfoolery and clickbaited. But if you're this far in the video, I don't think you particularly mind. Now, let's get one thing straight. Guilty Gear Strive will never be a dead game. I truthfully think the game has grown so much and built such a following that even should a new Guilty Gear game come out, people will still be playing Strive. People still actively play Plus R and Exard, and even more people will play Strive. The nature of the game being extremely fun to watch will also make it a mainstay at tournaments for a good while longer. Now, I will say, a lot of this could be me huffing copium. I haven't quite mentioned it, but Strive is actually my first fighting game that I've put a lot of time into and played in any sort of competitive capacity. However, there are a ton of people like me. Tons of people who fell in love with Strive as a game, and while maybe they've explored other fighting games and will continue to do so, will always have a fond love of Strive, as frustrating as it may be at times, and will always come back to enjoy it. With that being said, I don't really think I have any issues saying that Strive has peaked. I mentioned it already multiple times in this video, but I seriously, truthfully never feel like anything will be as exciting as the EVO 2022 or Bridget release timeframe. As I'm finishing up this video, EVO Japan 2023 just concluded, and on a lot of accounts, it was a disaster in terms of organizing, bracketing, and venue setups. Offline events will always be extremely hyped for fighting games, but Combo Breaker 2023 will be the final one that doesn't include Street Fighter 6. And in my opinion, Street Fighter 6 will probably push Guilty Gear out of the limelight. At the moment in Strive, the game is probably the most balanced it has been in a long time, but many people are still complaining about characters. I think at this point, the volatility of Strive and the access many characters have to abilities that aren't very enjoyable to play against, such as Leo Flash Kick, Naga's Clone Fukyo, Happy Chaos's Gun, Zato's Oppose, May's Touch of Death, the list goes on. I think that it's led to an overall sour experience for players. Many take to Twitter to complain, and I'm not sure if I simply speak for myself, but it feels like there's a lot of negativity surrounding Strive. This negativity bleeds into the gameplay and overall just makes the game, in a way, feel not as fun as it once was. Now, I'm no expert, and I truthfully don't know what the bigger picture is for ArcSys. I think the start is absolutely fixing the servers. For a game that costs $40, it is beyond unacceptable that people cannot find a match. It is unacceptable for tournaments to have to run an hour longer than predicted just because of connection issues. If they can't fix these servers by the time Bedman releases, I think the game will enter a new slump. I think the game will slump even lower than it has before. And speaking of Bedman, I think they need to be competitively viable as a character. Some trailers are showing signs of life on that front, and hopefully there'll be an exciting Dark Horse addition to the cast. Lastly, I just think ArcSys needs to listen to its players and its content creators more. The hacker issue lasted far too long despite the content creators and tournament organizers crying out for over a month. These current connection issues have been brought up time and time again, and EVO Japan was a stain on the game and company that could have been fixed with just communication with players and tournament organizers and content creators. I just hope that in the end, ArcSys will be able to listen and improve this game that we all know and love. Hey, if you made it this far, I just want to say thanks a ton. I know this video is very different, and I'm generally not the most knowledgeable on these topics, but I think it's kind of important that some of the voices out there are from newer players that haven't been in this community a super long time. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a like. I would really appreciate that, and feel free to comment your own opinions. You can find my Twitter and Twitch down in the description, and I just do a lot of Guilty Gear stuff. I enjoy playing the game, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys stop by sometime. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys next time.